I had returned to my hometown to chase stories that hadn't left my mind. It was a few weeks ago. I was 35 and trying to write about strange local legends from when I was a kid. As I drove through the familiar streets, everything felt wrong. The houses looked worn down, and the empty storefront sent a chill up my spine. I parked in front of my childhood home, and even though it seemed the same, it felt empty. That night, I decided to rummage through the attic, searching for anything interesting. As I opened a dusty box, I found an old journal. Flipping through the pages, I saw weird sketches and strange tales about a barn on the edge of town. It was said to be haunted. I felt pulled to look for it. The next morning I chatted with the locals in the diner. When I mentioned the barn, they all grew quiet. One woman looked terrified. "You should leave that place alone," she warned. Her voice trembled, and I could tell she really meant it. I shrugged it off. They were just old stories, right? That night, I sat in my hotel room, attempting to piece together my article. Outside, I heard whispers. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then it became clearer. Someone seemed to be calling my name. My heart raced as I peeked out the window, but there was nothing. The next morning, I made my way to the barn. The path felt longer than I remembered. I parked and stepped onto the dirt trail leading there. The trees were denser and shadows danced beneath their branches. As I neared the barn, the door hung open, creaking like it invited me in. I hesitated but stepped inside. The air was stale, and I saw strange symbols on the wooden beams. They almost seemed alive, pulsing quietly. I felt my breath quicken. I stepped closer to examine the carvings when I heard something rustling behind me. I spun around but saw only shadows. "Just the wind," I muttered, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. I lifted my phone to take pictures, but then I noticed a smudge moving past the grimy window. My stomach twisted. The whispers came again, louder this time. I had to get out. "You shouldn't be here," they said, echoing off the walls. I stumbled backward, feeling dizzy. The sunlight outside looked harsh now, as if it couldn't penetrate the barn's gloom. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a message that sent chills through me. "Leave now." I looked up, and my heart dropped. There was a figure standing at the edge of the woods. They stared right at me. I turned and ran, my feet pounding on the dirt. The woods felt like they were closing in. I wanted to forget the barn and its secrets. But even as I left, I knew those whispers would haunt me. They called me back, and I didn't know if I would ever escape. I didn't sleep well that night. Every creak in the hotel room echoed like a scream, and I kept expecting someone to knock on the door. In the morning, I stumbled to the diner, hoping the coffee would clear my head. But even the familiar aroma felt heavy, like it weighed down my thoughts. The locals continued to avoid eye contact, whispering among themselves when I walked in. I felt exposed. My hands shook as I stirred my coffee. Then I noticed something sticking out from under the diner's counter, a weathered box, barely visible. My curiosity tugged at me, but I hesitated. "Are you okay?" A voice startled me. It was the waitress from the night before. Her eyes darted to the box, then back to me. "You really should leave this town," she urged. "Why?" I asked, the indignation rising in my chest. "I want to know more about the barn." Her face paled. "Some things are better left buried." Ignoring her warning, I reached for the box. I pulled it out and opened the lid. Inside there were old photographs, sepia-toned and wrinkled. My heart raced as I flipped through them. They were pictures of the barn, some from decades ago, some from just a few years back. But the most unsettling photo showed a group of people standing in front of the barn, their faces twisted in expressions of dread. One person stood out. His eyes were wide, and he looked directly at the camera. A shiver ran down my spine when I recognized him. It was a childhood friend of mine, Jason. I hadn't thought of him in years. I recalled the last time I saw him. He was heading to the barn, driven by the legends we had heard growing up. He never returned. "Whose are these?" I asked, my voice trembling. The waitress glanced around, then leaned closer, whispering, "They belong to Jason. That's why you should leave." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Jason had entered that barn, and now he was forever tied to it. Angry questions rushed into my mind. Why didn't anyone tell me this? Why did they let me walk into danger? I slammed the lid of the box shut, my heart pounding. I needed answers. I couldn't abandon Jason's memory, not with the horrifying weight of those photos. Where can I find more about him? I pressed the waitress, desperation mingling with determination. She shook her head, eyes pleading for me to drop it, but that only fueled my resolve. As I left the diner, shadows lengthened, and the sky grew darker. I felt a presence lingering behind me, like someone or something was following. I quickened my pace, looking over my shoulder, but there was nothing. I headed to the library, hoping to unearth anything about Jason and the barn's history. I felt it again, a whisper, faint but unmistakable. "Help us." I stopped in my tracks, my heart racing. Had I imagined it? I pressed my hand against the wall for support, then everything went black. Fear surged through me. I braced myself against the wall, ready to scream. Something was very wrong. I needed to figure out what was happening, to find Jason and uncover the truth about this haunted barn. I woke up on the cold floor of the library, disoriented. The faint smell of dust and old paper was grounding, but my heart was still racing. I got to my feet, scanning the room. The flickering fluorescent lights above buzzed eerily, and I felt a chill creep down my spine. I was alone, but the silence was heavy. As I leaned against the wooden table, I recalled the whisper, echoing in my mind. I needed to understand what Jason had found in that barn. I pushed aside the lingering fear and tried to focus. There must be more information here about both him and the place. I grabbed a nearby book filled with local history, yellowing pages, handwritten notes in the margins. It was a collection of urban legends with sections devoted to the barn and its dark past. Curiosity and dread mingled as I flipped through it. Then I saw it, a mention of a cult that had once gathered in the area. Their leader went missing one night after a secret ceremony in the barn. I shuddered. Could the barn be tied to some horrific events? The images from the box weighed heavily on my mind now. What had Jason stumbled onto? What had he become entwined with? Suddenly, a loud bang sounded from the back of the library. I jumped, the book nearly slipping from my hands. My heart raced as I crept toward the noise, cautious of my surroundings. Was I being watched? I glanced toward the entrance, still empty. As I approached the back shelves, I found a door slightly ajar. It creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, the air was stale, and the space seemed neglected. A small room, filled just with old boxes and dust-covered furniture. But in the center, a large wooden chest caught my eye. That's when I saw it, a glimmer of something shiny in the dim light. Trepidation clawed at me, but I couldn't turn back now. With shaking hands, I opened the chest. Inside lay an assortment of items, rusted tools, tattered clothes, and then, buried beneath them, a small leather-bound journal. I took a deep breath and opened it. The writing was frantic, the ink smudged as if the writer had been in a hurry. The entries referred to rituals, names of people who had attended, and chilling warnings about the barn's hunger. I felt my stomach drop. As I read through the pages, a familiar name made my blood run cold. Jason. It mentioned his arrival at the gatherings, his growing bond with the cult, and an ominous sign they had awaited. I flipped to the last page, my hands trembling. The entry ended abruptly, as if something had interrupted the writer. Just then I heard footsteps echoing down the hall. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone. Someone was in the library with me. The footsteps paused outside the door. I rushed to return the journal to the chest, knowing I couldn't get caught. I glanced back at the door, dread pooling in my gut. The handle rattled. I ducked behind the shelf, heart pounding, waiting for whatever would happen next. The whispers grew louder in my mind, pleading, "Help us!" I thought I knew what I had to do, but with that realization came the chilling question. Would I also become part of the barn's twisted story? The door creaked open slowly, and I pressed my back against the shelf, barely breathing. My heart raced as darkness loomed beyond the doorframe. I couldn't see who had arrived, but I could hear shuffling footsteps moving into the room. They were closer now, and every sound felt amplified in the silence. "Hello?" a voice called out. It was low and hesitant, and I recognized it. It was Jason. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by alarm. What was he doing here? Had he come looking for me? I felt torn between finding him and staying hidden. The journal's words echoed in my mind, warnings ringing like a distant bell. I couldn't risk exposing myself. I peered around the edge of the bookshelf. Jason moved slowly, scanning the room with an intensity that made my skin crawl. He looked different. Hollowed eyes, disheveled hair. The carefree guy I once knew now seemed haunted. "What the hell?" he murmured as his gaze settled on the wooden chest. My chance to slip away was fading. I crouched down lower, praying he wouldn't look my way. I needed to know what he had discovered, but I also had to figure out why everything felt so wrong. Jason approached the chest and knelt beside it, opening the lid wider. The light caught his face, and for a moment, confusion flickered across his features. Was he even aware of what had transpired? I watched closely, heart pounding as he rifled through the objects inside, the journal still hidden beneath the other items. "Why are you here?" he muttered to himself, a nervous edge creeping into his voice. "I shouldn't have come back." The words sent a chill through me. Why would he say that? Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, and a wisp of cold air wrapped around my neck. I shivered, goosebumps rising on my arms. Jason paused, sensing it too. He looked up as if he'd heard the whispers too, and I felt a surge of panic. I couldn't let him see me. Before I could decide my next move, the library door swung open wider. A figure loomed in the doorway, tall, shrouded in shadow. I squinted, trying to make out the details. It was a woman, her features obscured, but there was something chilling in the way she stepped inside, as if she owned the very air. "Jason," she said, her voice a smooth, sickly sweet tone. "You're back." That was all it took. I felt my stomach drop. I wanted to cry out, to warn him, but my voice was caught in my throat. Instinctively, I pressed myself deeper into the shadows, hoping I wasn't seen. Jason appeared frozen, staring at the woman's silhouette. "I was looking for answers. I shouldn't have opened that door," he whispered, backing away slowly, his face a mix of recognition and fright. "Your questions have been answered," she replied, lifting an outstretched hand. It trembled slightly, and I could sense the darkness surrounding her. "You must come back to us." Panic washed over me. Was this part of the cult? Was she there for Jason? My fingers clenched around the edge of the shelf, and I couldn't breathe. The whispers grew more desperate, drowning out my own thoughts. Then Jason turned, taking a step toward her, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" That's when I knew I had to act. Jason was slipping, and if I didn't do something, I could lose him to whatever darkness he had encountered. And yet, as I stepped out of the shadows, my voice trembling as I called his name, I couldn't shake the growing dread that it was already too late. As soon as I stepped into the light, Jason's expression shifted. His eyes flickered between recognition and confusion, as if he were trying to decide if I was a friend or a ghost. The woman's gaze darted to me, and I felt a chill shoot down my spine. "Get away from him!" I shouted, panic setting in. I never expected to do this. My voice wavered, but I forced it to steady. "Ah," she said, her tone dripping with amusement. Another lost soul has joined us." What did that mean? Her words sent waves of dread coursing through me. I moved instinctively, stepping in front of Jason. "You don't want to get involved with her," I warned, shooting a worried glance back at him. "Please, let's just leave." Jason's gaze lingered on the woman, as if he was entranced. "She just wants to help," he murmured. "It's not what you think." "No, you have to listen to me. This isn't—" I started, but the woman raised her hand, cutting me off. "You see, dear," she said, her voice lilting with sinister charm, "your friend is more curious than cautious. He wants to embrace the truth, don't you, Jason?" His expression twisted, caught in the battle between the two of us. I sensed the pull of something dark in his eyes, a lure I couldn't understand. "I don't know what's happening here," he said slowly, almost like he was waking up from a dream. "But I can't just turn away." I felt my stomach plummet. "No, we can't stay. You don't know what she's capable of. We need to go, now." Suddenly, the shadows in the room seemed to shift, breathing. The air thickened, and I could hear whispers crawling over the walls. I wheeled around to face the woman, and the unease coiled tighter in my chest. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from us?" "That's simple," she said, her smile unnerving. "You both belong with us. The awakening has begun. Jason has felt our call, and now it's your turn to join." I shook my head. "No." My heart was racing as I realized the depth of the darkness before me. "I won't let you take him." The woman stepped closer, and I felt electricity crackle in the air, the whispers growing louder. I could see the shadows writhing around her like serpents. "You're too late. He is already ours." In that moment, everything changed. Jason faltered, his eyes clouding over as if he was being pulled into a deep abyss. "Please, Jason, fight it!" I cried out, feeling powerless. Then, everything went dark. The lights flickered and went out, leaving us in an oppressive silence. I reached out instinctively for Jason, desperation clawing at me. "Jason!" I called, my voice echoing in the hollow space. But there was no answer. I felt my way through the darkness, panic tightening my breath, and then I heard it, a low, rumbling sound, deep in the shadows. Someone or something was in the room with us. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I strained to listen, the ominous sound rising and falling like a distant thunder. It was too close, too real. I reached out into the darkness, my fingers grazing something cold and unyielding. My breath quickened. The shadows felt alive, closing in around me. "Jason," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. No response. Panic clawed at my throat. I couldn't leave him here. I had to find him. I shuffled forward, hesitation weighing my every step. The low rumble transformed into incoherent murmurs, as if the walls themselves were talking, summoning me deeper into the dark. "We are here," the whispers seemed to say. "Join us." "No," I muttered, shaking my head. I stumbled forward, trying to navigate an invisible landscape. I had to remember where we'd been before the lights went out. I thought I felt a corner, then a doorway. My fingers brushed against something soft. A piece of fabric. I pulled away, heart racing, sure I was about to encounter whatever was lurking in the room. Then I felt it again, the brush of fabric, but this time it was accompanied by a soft, desperate whisper. "Help me." I froze. "Jason?" "Yes." His voice was faint, barely above a breath. The relief surged through me. I moved toward the sound. "Stay still!" I shouted, hoping my voice would reach him through the suffocating darkness. "I'm coming!" I stumbled again, losing my footing. Something moved past me, and I felt a chilling gust of air. My skin prickled. I could sense it, something feeding off our fear, reveling in our confusion. I took a deep breath and pressed on, blunt determination guiding me. Finally, I felt something solid. I turned and practically crashed against a wall. "Jason, "Where are you?" I called, feeling the rough surface beneath my fingertips. There's a door," he said, and I could hear the tremor in his voice. "It was behind me." "Can you get to it?" I asked, trying to calculate how far I was from him. My throat tightened at the thought of moving through infinite darkness again. "I don't know, it's all too dark," he replied, and there was a crack in his composure that terrified me. "Okay, just hold on. I'll find you." I forced myself to stay calm. I stepped back, orienting myself blindly and extending my arm ahead. I caught a whiff of something foul, a putrid scent that twisted my stomach. Then I felt a hand. Mine shot up to snatch it while it was still warm. No hesitation. I squeezed tightly and tugged. "Come on!" The moment our hands connected, I was jolted with an electric shock that made my stomach churn. It felt like a thread cutting through the fog. I pulled him closer, even as dread seeped back in. "Jason, we have to go, now!" His voice broke with urgency, and the whispering intensified behind us, clamoring like a storm. "Where?" I yelled over the rising tide of noise. "Find the door, it's not far." That's when I saw it. A sliver of light piercing through the dark, pulsing like a heartbeat. I shifted toward it, dragging Jason along. But as we approached, the whispers grew insistent, turning into a wail that rattled my bones. The door loomed closer. I could feel the warmth of the light pulling me in, promising safety. But the chorus of voices was relentless. "Stay with us!" they cried, echoing in my mind. With shaky resolve, I pushed Jason ahead. "Run!" The door was almost within reach when a shadow darted out from the corner of my vision. I turned just in time to glimpse a figure sliding through the darkness, its face obscured, but its eyes burning with hunger. "Go!" Jason shouted, and I surged forward, fear folding over my heart like a blanket. We had to escape. We had to. Just as we neared the door, something gripped my ankle, dragging me back. I screamed and twisted, fighting against the icy fingers sinking into my skin. It felt like every nightmare converging into that moment. "Don't look back!" Jason cried from just beyond the threshold. And in that split second, I had a choice to make. Either embrace him or surrender to the shadows. I lunged toward Jason, my fingers clawing at the empty air. The shadows around me tightened their grip, threatening to pull me under. "Jason!" I shouted again, feeling the cold fingers digging deeper into my skin. My heart raced, and every instinct told me to break free from whatever was clawing at me. With one last, desperate effort, I pulled my foot forward, breaking free from the icy hold. I stumbled, falling into Jason's arms just as the door swung open wider. An explosion of light flooded in, momentarily blinding me. "Go!" he urged, shoving me through the doorway ahead of him. For a heartbeat, I hesitated, glancing back into the darkness. Something shifted there, a shape melding with the shadows, its hungry eyes fixed on us. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I just wanted to escape. "Please," Jason's voice cut through my fear. I turned and sprinted through the threshold. We raced across a narrow hallway, the cacophony of the whispers dissolving into a soft murmur behind us. As we reached the end of the corridor, we stumbled into a jagged room, illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights. I scanned the space, empty walls adorned with old photographs, the air thick with dust, and something else I couldn't quite place. Is this part of the building?" Jason asked, panting. "I think so," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "But it doesn't feel right." Suddenly, I noticed one of the photographs. It depicted a smiling couple standing in front of a small house, but something was off. Their eyes had been scratched out, and in the space where their faces should have been, there was only a void. My stomach churned. Why would someone do this? Jason stepped closer, his brow furrowing. "We should get out of here." He had a point. I glanced around, looking for another exit. The whispers had faded into a distant echo, but the lingering feeling of being watched pricked at me. I moved toward a door on the opposite side of the room, half expecting something to leap out at me. "Wait!" Jason's voice stopped me. "Do you hear that?" There it was again, a low droning sound that seemed to vibrate through the walls. It was different from the whispers, deeper, more primal. "What is that?" I asked, fear creeping back in. "Let's just find another way out," Jason urged, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something essential was hidden behind it. Before I could respond, the door I was headed toward burst open, and a figure stood silhouetted against the light, a trembling silhouette that seemed both familiar and foreign. "Help me!" the figure pleaded, and something about the voice sent a chill through my spine. "Who is that?" Jason squinted, taking a step back. I blinked. "I don't know." It was then I recognized the figure, a long-forgotten face from my past, someone I thought I'd left behind. My heart sank. What happened to you?" The figure stepped forward, and the droning sound escalated, wrapping around us like an embrace, cold and suffocating. "Join us," it whispered, lips curving into a chilling smile. I froze, the darkness behind me feeling like an old friend. In that moment, it didn't feel like a choice at all. I felt the weight of the past pull at me, but Jason's grip on my arm snapped me back to the present. "We can't stay here," he said urgently. The figure's smile faded, replaced by something darker, almost predatory as it stepped closer. "Join us," it repeated, voice dripping with desperation. It wasn't just an invitation, it felt like a summons. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my body hesitated, caught in the tension of recognition and dread. "Move!" Jason shouted, tugging me backward, forcing me away from the figure. I finally tore my gaze away from its haunting visage and turned toward the door we had entered through. As we stumbled into the narrow corridor, the air thickened, making each breath feel like a battle. I could still hear the faint echoes of that low, droning sound, silent yet deafening, reverberating in my bones. "Where do we go?" I asked, panic creeping back in. The shadows seemed to stretch with us, filled with whispers that taunted my every step. "Just keep going," Jason urged, his eyes darting around for signs of escape. We hurried down the hall, trying door after door, but each one was locked tight. The atmosphere felt suffocating, the dim lights flickering above as if they were about to go out completely. "Look!" Jason suddenly pointed to a door at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar. A sliver of light filtered through, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Maybe that one. As we rushed toward it, I could almost feel that familiar presence creeping behind us. I glanced over my shoulder and froze. There it was, the silhouette from before, moving with an unnatural grace, gaining on us. "Get in!" Jason shouted. He shoved the door open wider and I stumbled into the room, Jason close behind. I barely registered our surroundings as I slammed the door shut, heart pounding. The room was larger than I expected, with shelves lined with strange artifacts and old books. An old desk sat in the corner, papers scattered across it. It felt different, almost inviting, but a musty smell hung in the air. My eyes fell on a battered journal half open on the desk, the pages filled with frantic writing. "Don't read that," Jason warned, having noticed my gaze. No telling what it might say. But I was already reaching for it. I flipped the pages, scanning the words. There were mentions of rituals, of connecting with lost souls, and chilling descriptions of the figure we had just encountered. "At the right moment, you can summon them," I murmured, my voice trembling. "They want you to join them. They need something." "What?" Jason asked, panic rising in his voice. "Join who? What are you talking about?" Before I could answer, a loud banging sounded against the door, shaking the frame. The figure's voice filtered through, low and threatening. "You can't hide from us." I felt the cold bite of fear creep up my spine. Just when I thought I had a grip on the situation, everything spun out of control, and I realized that we were not safe. Not here. "Jason," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "we need to get out. Now." But just as we turned to find another way, the lights flickered again and went out, plunging us into darkness. I fumbled in the dark, my heart racing. The echo of the banging grew louder, almost rhythmic, as if the figure outside was taunting us. With every sound, my mind raced through possibilities. What could it want? Why couldn't we stay hidden? "Jason," I whispered, panic starting to rise. "Where do we go?" "I don't know," he snapped, his voice tense. "Can you see anything?" "No," I admitted, and my voice cracked. Every sense was heightened. The musty smell filled my nostrils, mingling with the cold sweat forming on my back. Suddenly, Jason's hand found mine and squeezed. "Let's head toward the desk. Maybe there's something we can use." He began moving carefully, guiding me with slow, deliberate motions. I followed, trying to avoid the mess of papers that threatened to trip me. Just as we reached the desk, the door groaned and rattled violently, sending a jolt of fear through me. The figure's voice crooned softly, "Your fear nourishes us. Join us." A chill slipped down my spine, and I almost forgot to breathe. That voice, I recognized it. It was a voice from my childhood, a distant memory wrapped in fog. "Why does it sound familiar?" I blurted, panic overwhelming my rational thought. "I don't know," Jason replied, his voice strained. "Stay focused. We need to find a way out." I reached for the journal again, feeling its worn cover. "There's something in here," I said, flipping through the pages until I found a passage that caught my eye. "In the dark, connect with the lost, offer what they seek, and they'll reveal the truth." "What does that mean?" Jason asked, glancing nervously toward the door, now quaking with intensity. We might have to give something," I murmured, "but what could I possibly offer?" Then a thought struck me as the room went eerily quiet. "My grandmother," I remembered. "She used to tell me stories about a place like this. She once said that they wanted something of value, a memory, a fragment of the past." Jason's eyes widened. "That's it. We might have to show them our memories. They can connect with what we've lost." The door slammed against the wall, and the figure glided into the room, bathed in an unsettling light. Its face was twisted by shadows, but I could feel its intensity. "Join us," it cooed again, each word wrapped in longing. "Share what you know." I stepped forward, uncertainty gripping me. Then somehow I felt a surge of courage. "What do you want from us?" I called out. "What do you need?" The figure paused, its head tilting slightly. "Your acceptance, your loss. Only then can we find peace." Just then, I felt a pull from deep inside, memories flashing through my mind, laughter, warmth, and love. But with each image came a counter, shadows creeping in, twisting the happiness. My heart raced as realization dawned. "We can't let it take us," I shouted, stepping back, but the figure had already started to reach for me. Before I could react, I stumbled onto the desk, knocking over the journal. Pages scattered like leaves in the wind, and in that chaos, the lights flickered back on, casting a harsh glow over everything. That's when I saw it. A photograph hidden beneath the journal. I reached for it, curiosity overpowering the dread. As I pulled it out, my breath caught in my throat. It was a picture of my grandmother standing with the figure. They were together, smiling. Questions flooded my mind, and I realized all too late. I had made a choice. My past was closing in, and there was no turning back. The moment my fingers brushed against my grandmother's smiling face in the photograph, a shudder coursed through me. Her eyes sparkled with life, but there was something lurking beneath that warmth, something older and darker. I could feel the air thickening around us, the shadows in the room twisting and swirling like smoke. "Why is she in this?" My voice quavered, echoing in the charged silence. I turned to Jason, confusion and fear mixing with a sense of betrayal. The figure before us had transformed. It was no longer a mere silhouette of darkness. Instead, it shimmered, taking on my grandmother's hauntingly familiar contours, her expression an unsettling fusion of warmth and despair. "Join us," it echoed, a chorus of voices layering over one another. the soft lilt of my grandmother's voice mingling with the ominous undertones of something far less friendly. The shadows in the room pressed in, holding us captive, grinding my heart. We've been waiting. Waiting for what? I shot back, my heart pounding wildly. What do you want from us? The figure tilted its head, its smile deepening. To be whole, it's time to embrace the lost. The whispers at my back swelled into a crescendo, urgent and pleading, beckoning like a dark tide. "No!" Jason shouted, grounding my spiraling thoughts. "We have to fight this! We have to run!" His voice broke through, and I realized he was right. This, whatever it was, couldn't be trusted. As if sensing my resolve, the figure advanced, shadows swirling around it like tendrils reaching for us. "You can find peace with us," it whispered. "You can be part of something greater." And then the lights flickered again, plunging us into near-complete darkness. I grasped Jason's hand tightly, desperate to tether myself to reality. "We have to get to the door," I said, barely above a whisper. We started to back away from the figure, breath quickening as its murmurs enveloped us. "No more running. You are ours," it intoned, voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony of despair. "Not yet," Jason said, holding my hand tighter, pulling me along. We stumbled blindly, and then found the door we had entered through. Adrenaline surged. "On the count of 3, he said. 1, 2... An icy wind swept over us as the figure unleashed a growl, swirling shadows encasing the room. "Join us!" it boomed, and the ground shook beneath our feet. 3! We shouted together, flinging the door open. We sprinted down the corridor, breathless, heart racing. The ominous droning sound surged behind us, concerted and relentless. In the dim light of the hallway, I caught a glimpse of the figure, an amalgamation of past memories entwined in darkness, extending a hand as if to pull us back into the abyss. "Don't look back," Jason urged, and somehow I managed to focus on the way ahead. The whispers faded behind us, but their echoes haunted my mind. My grandmother? The cult? Was I meant to join them? Bursting into the next room, I scanned frantically for another exit. Shelves were lined with dusty tomes and curious artifacts. My heart sank. Where to go next? "Over there!" Jason pointed to a window at the far end, a thin sliver where light etched through the grime. Without waiting, we dashed toward it, the weight of shadows pushing behind us. As we reached the window, I heaved it open, the stale air rushing in like a storm, and sunlight hit my face like a jolt. "Come on!" I shouted, grasping for Jason's hand. "Almost there!" he gasped, pulling himself up beside me. Just as we were crawling through the opening, a cold grasp snaked around my ankle. "You can't leave!" The shadows surged forward, their angry whispers swirling like a tempest. "Hold on!" Jason shouted as I struggled against whatever was trying to pull me back. Fighting with every ounce of strength, I kicked free and tumbled out, landing hard on the ground outside. I rolled over, reaching for Jason, but he was still stuck in the window, grappling with the darkness that clawed at him. It felt like time slowed, fear urging me to act quickly. "Jason, you have to fight it! Come on!" The shadows writhed around him, whispering promises of understanding and peace, but I could see that they were lies. In that moment our eyes met, his brimming with fear, yet tinged with determination. "I refuse to let them take you," I shouted, relentless. "I need you," he shouted. "Then get out," I yelled back, extending my hand. With one final push, he propelled himself through the window, landing beside me on the ground. We scrambled to our feet and took off, running into the open field beyond the abandoned building as the hostile whispers faded, sinking back into the darkness. We didn't stop until we were far away, panting heavily beneath the wide sky. Finally, we collapsed onto the grass, hearts racing, sunlight warming our skin. Jason stared at the ground, breathless. "Did we make it?" "I think so," I said cautiously, the weight of our escape pressing heaviness into my chest. But I still don't understand what any of it meant. Questions surged. About my grandmother, the shadows, the barn, Jason's connection to it all. "What if they come back?" he murmured, eyes darting nervously toward the creeping tree line. For a moment, I didn't respond. "I don't know," I admitted, the ache of uncertainty twisting in my gut. I still thought about those whispers, their haunting calls and desires that lingered at the edges of my memory. Had we truly escaped? Or was the darkness merely waiting to renew its grasp? As I looked at Jason, I realized that even if we had fled the physical threat, it would continue to linger in the corners of my mind. And ultimately the truth remained elusive. Would the barn's hold over us dissolve with distance, or would it sink deeper, forever intertwined with our fates? I sighed, the weight of those questions sitting heavy on my chest. "I moved away from here once," I said finally, glancing at the horizon, shrouded in ambiguity. "Maybe one day I'll understand it better." But even as I spoke, I wondered if the answers would ever be clear, or if some mysteries were meant to be left buried in the shadows.